Hi, my name is Spandita Malik. I am the 2020 Workspace Resident at Baxter Street at the Camera Club of New York. So I am of the belief, just because I've worked with embroidery before I started this project ever, and I learned embroidery when I was, I think, around 8 years old. My grandmother taught my mom embroidery and my mom taught me, and it's sort of been passed on through generations that I actually believe that embroidery is sort of a form of, a legacy that has been passed amongst women through generations. I was really deep into research of laws in photojournalism and journalism in general around the rape culture. During this research, I realized that I needed to go back home and actually talk with women. I started with Lucknow. I traveled to Jaipur in Rajasthan, and then I went to Chumkaur Sahib in Punjab. I met with these women through non-for-profit organizations for domestic abuse survivors. At the center, these women, they learn to sew, they learn the embroidery that is culturally famous in the area. These women who are affiliated with the center aren't allowed to leave their houses or come to the center, for the matter of fact, and they just work from home. So I started to work with these women in their houses. This community building started to happen in some sort of way. I think I've grown up looking at photography of India through a very Western perspective or through a very colonized perspective. And I wanted to move away from that and actually sort of figure out a way to represent the people of India or the women in my work in a way that there was not just the power play, it was not completely in the hands of the person who's photographing. On this idea, on this basis, I started to photograph them in their houses and ask them to embroider their own portraits in whatever way they wanted, without any guidelines, no restrictions. They could absolutely do whatever they wanted to do to the image. Since I've not been able to go back home, the huge wave of COVID that hit India in May 2021 made us reiterate the project, and we found new ways to do it. And I started a WhatsApp group and I put everyone together, and these women don't know each other because they're from different states. They started to communicate with each other and share resources and ask for help and support. Several of these women had relatives who got sick from COVID and needed beds in hospitals, and everyone started to jump into the WhatsApp group and help each other out. And basically this WhatsApp group became sort of a source for me to stay in touch with them, and they started to tease me about how I am at a marriageable age and I should probably get married. And that was sort of a starting point for me to ask them, well, I've never seen your marriage photographs, your albums. And then they started to share those photographs with me. The way that they would talk about themselves in the past, how they didn't know how their life would turn out to be because they had no idea who they were marrying. At that point, they didn't know anything about the person. They talked about how naive they were in those photographs, and how less they knew of the world. They were so young. And it became a starting point for understanding how they would sort of reshape that image if they were given control to do that via embroidery. I've sort of become half the viewer of my own work. It's completely transformed me as an artist. Looking at the project is understanding how these women look at themselves and actually be a part of the conversations, rather than someone who is entering into their houses and trying to have a conversation. And in my own personal way, I think it's that embroidery is a language to break the oppressor, to formulate symbols and iconography that can be passed on through generations in a way of its own language.